Hi, good morning. We're reading Mystery of History, Volume 4. We're on page 51. We're looking at Part 1 of the American Revolution and the 10 steps. Let's review Step 1 was the Boston Massacre. Cruise Step 2 was the
Boston Tea Party.
Good. Number 3, Cal, was the First Continental
Congress.
Good. Number 4, Patrick Henry's fiery
Speech.
Good. Do you remember number 5?
I was going to say taste.
Can you remember number 5?
I can't. Tea Party.
No, that was already. It was Paul Revere's Ride.
Oh.
Now, number 6, we have the battles of Lexington and Concord.
Concord done.
Despite the advance warnings to the colonists, remember, Dawes and Revere warned the colonists, the British still continued their advance. In the dead of night, colonial militia lined up to face British troops in Lexington, Massachusetts, and then it happened. The quote-unquote shot heard round the world was fired. It was April 19th in 1775, and a single shot was fired to officially start the American Revolution. Though no one knows which side fired first, the battles that followed would have ripple effects around the world. The War of Independence had begun, and a new nation would take its first breath. Several men from both sides died that first night, and fighting carried on from Lexington to Concord. In Concord, the British had a hard time finding the stash of gunpowder that they were supposed to retrieve. The colonists had spent all night hiding it. Nonetheless, fighting broke out when it appeared that some houses in the town had been set on fire. Colonial militia seemed to spring up from everywhere. The British received fresh troops as well, but suffered a high number of casualties. What are casualties?
Normal losses.
Deaths. I don't know why they just don't say deaths.
I know. Casualties makes me think, oh, something casual's happening.
It's a casualty of war, meaning
The normal losses.
Which is death in war. In fact, the British lost twice as many as the colonists in these first two battles. They retreated to Boston to tend to their wounds, but there in the big city, more colonial militia encircled them. Now, hold that thought as we pause from the fighting to see what was going on in politics. So this is going on, and then step number 7 is the Second Continental Congress. With the realization that war was upon them, the colonists scurried for more organization. So they're trying to organize themselves because war is clearly breaking out. This came about when representatives met in Philadelphia for the Second Continental Congress. This meeting started in May 10th in 1775. By June, this always makes me think of no air conditioning. Woo! By June, it was agreed, and they wore wigs and those long pants and
Big, huge, thick, fancy coats.
I know they were sweating up a storm. It was agreed that the colonists needed one man to lead their scattered militias and build a continental army. And I wonder what they used for deodorant.
They must have been like paddling through their sweat on little boats that were sinking, trying to get through their meeting.
I wonder what it smelled like in the meeting.
I think they're wearing snow masks because that's what they used in the Black Death.
No. Okay, so they elected 43-year-old George Washington to lead the militia. Washington had no battle experience other than the French and Indian War. I'd still say that's battle experience. Most would agree it was not military experience that got him elected, but rather his strong moral fiber. It means his character. Writing often of God's providence in his life, Crew's too loud. George Washington was known for impeccable character and fortitude. Fortitude means determination, and he would need that for what lay ahead. The Second Continental Congress was attended by most of the same delegates, But in addition, there was Benjamin Franklin, who had now returned from England. Also now in attendance was Thomas Jefferson, a name most Americans know today. He would soon begin the task of drafting the Declaration of Independence. But before we get to that story, let's go back to Boston, where the British had retreated after the battles in Lexington and Concord. Remember that they were encircled by the colonial militia that were anxious to attack. Here is a picture of Thomas Jefferson. Cal.
Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. All right,
I
now.
don't think he looked exactly like that.
Well, it's a pretty good painting of him. I'm not sure, he didn't look like it all throughout his life, but that's what pretty good painting of what he looked like right then. All right, step number 8. So we just did, let's review. We went from Patrick Henry's fiery speech to Paul Revere's ride to the battles at Lexington and Concord to pausing for a Second Continental Congress to the colonial defeat at the Battle of Bunker Hill. So just north of Boston lies a small peninsula. The peninsula has 2 hills, Bunker Hill and Breed's Hill. It was obvious that if the colonists could place cannons on those hills, which overlooked Boston, they would have the British in the palms of their hands. So on the night of June 16th in 1775, Caleb, about 1,200 colonial militiamen scrambled, climbed, and carried cannons, that's a big job, to the tops of these 2 hills. As morning light of June 17th dawned, the British could see these cannons with their eyes. A hot defensive battle followed. British troops were led by General William Howe. Or maybe it's Hoe. I'm going to say Howe. Colonial troops were led and inspired by General Israel Putnam and Colonel William Prescott.
Israel.
The worn-down colonists were tired from having stayed up all night moving those cannons. They were also low on ammunition, and they resorted to melting down pipe organs for bullets. That's a really long and difficult. We need more bullets. Okay, hold on. Let me go melt down some pipe organs.
Do you know how big organs are?
Yes. Still, from their hilltop advantage, they had the edge over the British, whom they proceeded to fire on throughout the day. The British lost men left and right, but they continued to press down on the colonists. They had one weapon in their favor, the bayonet rifles, which are guns with swords built in. So when the colonists ran out of firing power, the British in their bright red uniforms advanced with sharp bayonets for face-to-face combat. The colonists were forced to retreat, and the British claimed victory at Bunker Hill. Though most of the battle was fought on Breed's Hill, Bunker Hill became the more famous. The British were inspired by their victory at Bunker Hill, and yet humbled by their many losses. They never expected the ragtag militia of colonists to fight as bravely as they did. Okay, so we're going to stop there. We're on page 53. We still have 2 more steps in part 1, and we'll finish that probably tomorrow. All right, we'll chat later. Bye.